Now, we've talked about the two different types, which is the foam and the spray whitewater simulation. And what we want to do here is combine those two. So let's jump over to our scene. And what I did, I simulated parts of it. It's still running in the background. But one thing that we have to change that maybe you've noticed already is inside here, the grouping. Two things. First of all, our source group was before it was just born like this, and the way it comes out here out of the whitewater solver is with a group that is just called just born with no capital letter in between. Not sure if you can see it somewhere here, but you could definitely have a look at the groups if you export this. So we have to adjust this here and here as well. The other thing that we have to do is so it doesn't overwrite the group on each emission frame. We do want to keep the ones that are emitted and live longer to also stay in that group. So we have to tick on preserve group. So it just keeps adding to that group and doesn't overwrite it. And so only the particles on emission get this group applied. So maybe you've gone ahead, simulated, and was like, okay, doesn't really look that much different or doesn't look that interesting. But if we apply these settings, then we should be good to go. The other thing that I did add is just to make it a bit more interesting, add a bit more detail, is I bumped up the emission amount. So this was at 0.05, I believe. And so I just added a bit more to that. Just so we can have a better feel for the entire sim. The sim is rather quick compared to the one before where we had the adhesion on. You might have think that it might be slower due to the clumping and stuff that is going on, but in this case, the adhesion is one part that is really slowing things down. So if you're simulating a splash or something where you don't really need anything sticking to the surface of the water, then go ahead, disable that, and it's going to save you a lot of simulation time. Maybe also for testing might help as well. So we do have to turn the adhesion on again. So down here on the depth control. But before we do that, let's just have a quick look and see what our simulation or what our result of our settings are. So let's go ahead maybe to frame, I don't know, something around here, 43, where our simulation is already quite far ahead. And if we go a bit further in, we can already see some really nice behavior here, especially where we're starting to get like some nice clumping here of the whitewater, but we still have like some mist that is spraying around. And nice wording, since the clumping part is actually the spray and this is the mist spraying. And also what we really see here is our additional source that we provided from the top, which is basically fading off during the higher it gets. So if you remember that part here, this is also adding a lot of nice detail and just adding a bit of foam and stuff on top of the pillar, so it's not just floating into the air with nothing happening there. So really, really nice behavior here. Now, one thing that you do notice is that this bottom part is getting a bit diffuse. So the foam that we had before, and I think we can really see this. Let's see how far our simulation is. So let's have a look. So we're around, yeah, let's go a bit further, maybe frame 80. Yeah. So we do get some nice behavior due to the clumping also, as well on the surface, but it somehow just looks a bit diffuse, a bit thick, not really sticking to the surface. I mean, it is, but the adhesion does really, really help make this look more attached and more like foam. So, and also if we have a look at here, now what we're getting here, it's like some really nice foam spray streak stuff happening, some really nice clumping that is going to start to fall off. And this is really going to add to our overall simulation. And here we have the nice, where you can see the wind is pushing it over into the negative X direction here. So basically going outwards that direction. And I think if I remember correctly, the rope is pointing this way. So our ship is probably going to be around somewhere here appearing, and then probably the camera is going to be sitting here. And so a wind dragging this direction, I think is a good idea. Is nice having it dragging this way. Cool. So I'm really happy how this turned out. How like the behavior overall here. This is like, here we can see our nice tendrils forming. So where we get like some really nice shapes inside of the whitewater, and once we start to render this, this is really gonna show and give some nice effects there. Cool. So let's jump into the whitewater solver. First, disable our simulation, and this is quite straightforward. So first, let's check here, enable depth control. And we want to find out where this gets enabled, and then what we want to do is just enable based on the height. So the higher it gets, the more we want to have the adhesion get turned off. So let's just enable this again, and then depth control, and then go inside the whitewater solver. If you didn't unlock it yet, now it's the time to unlock the whitewater solver. Dive inside, and then let's hit Control or Command F. And then search for, I think it's depth control or something. Enable depth control. There we go. We have a node here. And then basically this is referring to the depth control outside. And so once this is enabled, this node here gets evaluated or takes effect. And so this is where we want to modify or add our changes. And so if we have a look at here, basically this does some calculations based on the depth and if it should push it or move it. So here you can see it's modifying the position. So adding to the position, the value it's calculating, and also adding this to the depth. And this is where we want to jump in. So basically we want to multiply this here by our height. So let's jump right to the top here, make a bit of space. Just always good to comment this kind of stuff. So let's say manual height adjustment, and then maybe just add some, I don't know, like this, just so we know this is the part where we added it. And then we will say define a float. And then this is going to be our height multiplier, and that one is equals to our fitted y position. So fit vector at position dot y, and then we want our min height and also promote our max height. Oops. And then what we want is basically this height multiplier to multiply the addition that is happening here. And so the higher it gets, the less we want of a change here. So we want to turn this around. Instead of 0 to 1, we basically want the min height to have a full effect, and the max height. So basically, I don't know, if we say 1 or 2 meters from there on, we don't want any effect, then we say 0. So basically we say fit this to 1, the min height, and the max height to 0. And now we can take this height multiplier, copy that, and then multiply our position, addition, and also the depth. Just make space here. And then just add a comment here. Multiply position and depth by height to turn off adhesion. Cool. So let's promote our parameters here, and then our min height. So where we want full adhesion effect. So we also have to take into account our waves that are happening. So I'd probably go for something for 0.1, and then for the max height, I don't know, let's go something a bit higher, something like that should be fine. So basically above 1.3 meters, the effect is going to be turned off, and it's just going to ramp down to 0.1, and at 1 it's going to be full adhesion effect, so it's going to apply to our foam on the surface. Now what we could do also is use this and basically sample the surface. So outside, create a specific surface. For example, if you have like really big waves and you can't just rely on the Y position, you could also create like in like the ocean surface and then just sample that and basically how far away it's from the ocean surface. Then you turn that off. That'd be another way, but for our case, this is enough. And what you could do here under the inputs, you could also grab something from outside, so a mask field or something that you want, and then use that in here to basically do the same operation and just multiply this down if it's closer or farther away from that surface. So I think this is it for this part. Let's just go ahead and color this node red. So if we ever want to change and we jump inside here, we exactly know where to go. And yeah, so the other thing that we want to change here for the export under our group delete, right now we're deleting everything. What we do want to do, so if we just drop down a blast node here and we delete, let me see, yeah, because we didn't simulate anything here. So let's just quickly jump to the beginning, turn on our simulation, and let's have this run for a couple of frames. I'm first going to save the scene. So let's continue running here. I'm going to go ahead and here, if you have a look here, jump over to deadline, and here is our whitewater that is running. And so I'm just going to stop this here. So just pause, suspend, just so we get our resources for our simulation here. And so what we want to do is on the group delete, keep our mist and spray groups that we defined inside the whitewater sim. So later that we can, for example, on the mist, have a bit smaller P scale, and on the spray, the stuff that is clumping, maybe have a bit bigger P scale, and also maybe multiply the density of that a bit higher, so we can distinguish those a bit better or control them easier. So let's have a look at our sim if we are already into, let's see, jump to it. Just a second, wait for this to calculate, and then jump there. And this is basically our simulation. And then what we can do under our blast here, now we can grab our mist group, delete non-selected. Now we have everything that is inside the mist group, and we do the same for spray. And now you see we isolate all this clumping parts, and so we can shade or treat them differently. So for example here, since you do have a bit of spacing in between them, but you don't want to have that appear in the render, and we want these to be a bit more solid than the spray, we can just bump the density of these up by just using these groups. So inside the group delete, let's just add these two. So delete everything except for mist and spray. Right, forgot. Like this. And now if we hook this up here, our groups should be preserved. So we should just have these two. All right. I think this covers up the whitewater section. Next up is the post process of this, of the whitewater. So basically where we will split this out into foam, bubbles, and spray, and then also treat this differently. We're just going to go set the basics up here, and then probably once we jump into the rendering part, we're going to be tweaking like P scale and stuff like that to have a bit more better understanding of what kind of look we are after. So we're just going to set up some general stuff there, and then do define the tweaking inside the rendering section.